today. That's why when we look at a number of billionaires, those who are in entrepreneurship, they are still looking for where to invest. There must be capital investment. It's in the form of a cycle. You get capital, you save capital, you get capital, you invest capital, and you must finally find out whether your capital is having accumulation, what you call capital accumulation, and it continues to go back to investment. And that's why we'll be looking at the role of the private sector in investment and whether it is contributing to the economic growth of this country. The economic growth of this country in another aspect, as we look at that, we need again to know that the current calculation of the GDP, the gross domestic product of this country, Uganda, which is at 38 billion USA dollars, the calculation is not always fair to the way we could want it to be. No wonder why we are at a low level of GDP compared with some countries, especially in the Great Lakes region. It's of recent, we do want to congratulate the people of Kenya, of which their practices, even in democratic practices, they are far ahead of Uganda, much as we're also doing our best. We can never be like our neighbor, but we can admire what may be good that we can borrow from our neighbor. Any person outside there, to be competitive for the best is good. It can only be worse or bad when you do compete not for a progressive either action or in agitation for a progressive society. So while looking at the economic growth of our nations on the continent and then the globe, we still have a lot to do. A number of times we've come here and talked about the economies of America, the first world economies. We talk about German, we talk about even those which we refer to on the continent, Nigeria, South Africa. Maybe before we had the challenges in Libya. Libya was a middle income status country. We admire a lot that is needed to be done. Our dear viewers, those who are outside there, we know it's of recent and that one of the world continental business competitor by names Dangote, he is believed to be spreading in most of African countries searching for business. Here he's dealing in cement, he's dealing in this, he's dealing in that. And at the highest level of where those who are doing best, the countries which are doing best in terms of economic growth, production is important. Productivity requires a state where every individual, every citizen, you are doing something to add value. We've been hearing about value addition, but value addition shouldn't be a concept too difficult for us. At a family level, what are you doing that is best to improve your economy before we talk about maybe what the nation or what the government is doing for you? And in a simple economic or micro, let me call them the microeconomics, the stake may be the participation or engagement in some economic activities like agriculture. What are you producing at a family level? If our country, Uganda, known to be an agrarian economy, what are you adding on in terms of production? And it is the information we come here to deliver, we come here to share, we come here to call for even those who can partner with us to continue building strong our understanding and our mindset. Because we always talk about, you see, we are poor, we cannot do this, we cannot be like America, we cannot be like, Germany. After all, we have faced a lot of problems. But some of the countries which have been able to break even, referring to countries like Singapore, which is always our associate example, especially in terms of fast-growing economies of that 19th century. And we refer to Singapore, we refer to Malaysia. Reason being that they were at the same level of economic status, especially in the 1962. Yet their productivity has been to be recognized to be much more better than us, much as we recognize that we had a number of civil strife, political challenges, but the way how they approached to the state of their economic, progress, it was far better, with high commitment, number one, to engage in production, number two, to ensure that they do not accommodate some of the unjust practices. We normally refer to corruption, embezzlement of funds, and all other kind of effects that can affect the progress of an economy. So while we are talking about the private sector this evening, we refer private sector's investment, it has a lot to admire. And for information to those who are following our discussion, we must remember that the government of Uganda deliberately has taken an initiative to support investment, private investments. Some they are at the level of private local investors, others they are foreign investors. All that at the end of the day, it lies under the national investment policy of the country. And it matches with what we know as a liberalized economy. All that intends to build and strengthen a liberalized economy, economic liberalization. This is far better than what the previous governments, especially the days of the late Idi Amin, of which he employed an economic strategy that caused an economic crisis in the country, where he did not entertain at all to have the foreign investors. And I believe fellow countrymen and fellow countrywomen, we need to recognize that the NRM government, especially the 30 years of our existence, the adoption of a liberalized economy, I believe it was ideal, and it is still ideal, to bridge the gap, especially of promoting investment. But it leaves still some undesirable unanswered questions, which I know those who are upcoming as local investors have faced challenges, and that's why we come in this talk show to be able to assess and measure whether our progress in investment, supporting national investment, is balanced. Now, we need again to know that the reason why our economic growth has been having a number of hiccups, it's because we've had a number of challenges, of course, not putting aside failure or limited level and capacity to balance export trade and import trade. So we will be having our guest tonight who will come and engage with us to inspire our country how we can do it better, especially building a strong private sector that will be far better than elsewhere we've had. And we'll be going for a short commercial break. Mr. Francis Chisilinya, the Chief Membership Officer at the National Private Sector Foundation, will be giving us more other insights that will not leave out some of the other sectors that are also important to look at, including health, including business entrepreneurship, and so forth. Please stay tuned on Smart 24 TV. We'll be coming back after a commercial break. But before we go for a commercial break, it is important to know that the unanswered questions, they need to be answered. We are not here just for a talk show for purpose of passing time. You have spared your time over there to follow up this. One of the key pertinent issues that I stated in this introductory part of our show is production, investment, private sector entrepreneurship should start at an individual level and it goes to a family level. And finally, we talk about the community, and before we begin to engage, talk about maybe what they are referring, whether the parish model, those are the initiatives of the government. But in this case, we must be able to entertain productivity, investment, private sector. Private sector, I do believe in my own understanding, it shouldn't be maybe another government or another item. It is a lifestyle. Allow me to state that we'll be having one of our major questions, that is private sector initiatives a solution to unemployment and export deficit? Uganda exports 13%. Uganda exports 13% to the total GDP, the contribution out of the export trade of the country. And that means we are relying much more on the import trade. And the moment we are relying on more on import trade, it means that our shilling is always demanding to be sold to the dollar. And when our shilling is demanding to be sold on the dollar, not that a dollar is demanding to buy a shilling, then that means we'll go to what we call the export deficit. And that needs a solution. The government must face it on, heads on. The investors who are coming in the country must face it heads on. And also, we citizens must face it heads on. To find we are importing, I believe we are not importing pens, importing even, all those kind of, few things you can talk about. You find that if I want a nice tie like this, I first say, I want to buy the good one of Taiwan. As if like Uganda, you cannot make, have industrial cottages and so forth. We can come up with these products, even the garments. I believe we must take a commitment. We cannot remain sleeping much as we are not too much in a deep sleep, but we need to do better than this. It's a pleasure to have you, sir. Mr. Francis Chisirinya, all along I've been yearning to see you, and the viewers are waiting for you. We would like to appreciate your initiative to have this forum of the private sector that must stir up investment of the country, and thereby helping us to have economic growth, of which will be addressing unemployment no longer to be a problem, and also export deficit not to be a problem. My dream for my country as I host you tonight, and also on behalf of the TV, is that maybe 3 years to come, that will be about 50% of the export. Maybe in the next 3 years to come, it's that out of the 83% of unemployment will be normal, and the solution is private sector. Sir, it's a pleasure to have you. Kindly greet the viewers as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you very much for the wonderful welcome. And good evening, our viewers on Smart TV tonight. My name is Francis Chisirinya. I'm the Chief Membership Officer at Private Sector Foundation. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, and you found us when we were already moving forward, especially looking at where we have come from as a country, where we are, and comparing to the world economies, the African continent economies, especially in terms of their progresses, looking at their GDP, and which relates much with the economic growth. And we stated it clearly that a lot is needed to be done. Uganda, we are saying, yes, we are not at zero as progress, but we are not to where we are expected to be if we are to have a competitive economy. And again, I made this remark, which I want to repeat it for us here, that we will not be comfortable to remain calculating the GDP of the country, of which the chief private sector may be entrepreneurial at a level, micro level. You talk about the Mukwano companies, you talk about maybe the steel companies, all those that are contributing much to the GDP, to say we are okay. Yet, we continue to suffer unemployment and the export deficit. And the contribution, even of the citizens to the tax base, is low because production is also low. And the solution, as we are appreciating this topic, we say private sector is the way to go. And I would like to take the opportunity to welcome you in just a few minutes, the first 3 minutes of either giving us your introductory remark, then we'll go for a break, then we'll continue.
Oh, thank you very much. And the viewers out there this lovely evening. First of all, let me give you the structure of the private sector in Uganda. I think that will frame our mind and the discussion going forward. Let me start with the Uganda's economy, the total value of all goods and services produced within our borders in a year, which we call gross domestic product,
yes, sir,
is worth $38 billion. That is a significant figure, which actually grew from about $5 billion in 1986. So we have moved miles and miles since then to where we are. Now, the private sector in Uganda is operating within this particular GDP, and the latest statistics that we have, official statistics from Uganda Bureau of Statistics, indicate that we have about 1.1 million business establishments in Uganda. The formal ones that are registered.
1.1 million.
1.1 million. And these, together with the informal ones that are not registered, contribute 80% of our GDP. So everybody there who is not a government employee, who is if you're not a government employee, you don't earn from government, you are called a private sector person. So you contribute 80% of the GDP of the country, and you employ about 90% of all non-formal farm jobs, and these are about 2.5 million of them. So 90% of those are in the private sector. It means that the remaining bit, it's only 10% that is employed in government. This is count all the civil servants, all the soldiers, the police officers, prison officers, and all the rest are within the 10. So the rest are within the private sector. Now, the companies that I talked about, 93% of these companies, or 93 out of every 100 companies are actually medium, small enterprises. So meaning that they don't employ more than 100 people in a year. They are grouped. The micro, they don't employ up to, they employ up to 5, then the small up to 50, then the medium up to 100. So meaning that 93% of these are really small enterprises. But having said that, of these 93, 80% of them are actually micro enterprises. So which means they are very small. The maximum employment they have is not more than 5 people. And that is 80% of the 93. You can calculate. That is about 70.
So you will hold on as we go for the short commercial break, and you will take us into the in-depth of that analysis. I'll be coming up with some questions out of what you are sharing with us, so that we can match together and see how we can make it better. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for coming. To our viewers, please stay tuned as we meet in the next session.